Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. A black mechanic repairs a disabled boy's wheelchair. A few days later, the jet lands. In a sleepy little Tennessee town, bordered by cornfields and single-lane roads, Derek Coleman ran an old garage located on the corner of Monroe Street. The building, made of rusty corrugated iron, still bore the faded sign, Coleman's Auto Repair, hand-painted by his father decades earlier. Every morning at 6 a.m. sharp, Derek raised the metal shutter with the same silent ritual. No blaring radio, no loud advertising, just the sound of tools, grease, metal, and the steady breathing of a man who knew every bolt like an old friend. At 52, he carried on his broad shoulders the traces of a past that few dared to question. His dark skin, marked by the sun and time, his almost sacred silence, and his tired gaze intimidated more than one customer. He spoke little, listened a lot. Some said he had been a soldier. Others thought he had lost everything, once upon a time. But everyone knew one thing: he never refused to help. The air was heavy that day. The kind of heat that makes your shirt stick to your skin. Before 9 a.m. Derek was working under the dented body of an old Buick Skylark, his fingers stained with grease, when the roar of an engine broke the silence of the neighborhood. A luxury black 4x4, a late-model Range Rover, braked sharply in front of the garage, kicking up a cloud of reddish dust. The passenger door burst open, and a woman in a cream-colored suit, clearly overwhelmed, ran out. She was holding a little boy, thin and pale, whose legs hung limply. She was also holding, with difficulty, a dislocated wheelchair, one of the wheels completely missing. The woman's face was drenched in sweat and worry. She had that strained expression of a mother who has tried everything. "Please," she breathed breathlessly. "My son needs this chair. We have to take a medical flight to Boston in a few days. We've called everywhere. No one will or can fix it. They say it's too specific, too complex, that it's imported." Derek stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a dirty rag, observing the scene with quiet intensity. His gaze lingered first on the child, whose tired but alert eyes tentatively scanned the garage. Then on the chair, a high-tech piece, custom-fitted but badly mistreated. He said nothing for a long time. Then, without comment, he knelt beside the chair. He touched the axles, examined the braking system, the joints, the carbon fiber structure. The boy looked at him, a little worried, a little curious. He saw that the man wasn't frowning, wasn't saying, "Impossible," like the others. Then, in a calm, deep voice, Derek simply says, "Give me a few hours. I'll take care of it." The wheelchair was a rare model, custom designed for children with mobility impairments and severe medical conditions. The label on the frame indicated that it came from a German manufacturer specializing in medical technology. The missing wheel was not a simple spare, it required a precise attachment system, specific balancing, and electronic components integrated into the assistance mechanism. Any other mechanic would have given up. More Derek he watched the machine as if it had been a spacecraft dropped from the sky. He felt neither intimidated nor discouraged. For him, every bolt had a logic, every flaw a solution. He silently closed his garage doors that evening, and as the streetlights on Monroe Street flickered with insects, he set to work. In the dim light of his workshop, illuminated by a single halogen lamp suspended above the workbench, Derek began his mechanical autopsy. He disassembled the chair piece by piece with surgical precision. His fingers covered in black grease and metallic residue, he etched into his memory the curves of the alloy, the internal circuits, the suspension systems, the way one memorizes the beat of a heart. Some parts were simply beyond repair. So, he made them himself. Using salvaged metal, modified bicycle bearings, and rods he hand-machined on his old military lathe, Derek brought the chair back to life. He re-welded the frame fasteners, adjusted the backrest angle for better posture, reinforced the brake mechanism, and replaced the worn cushions with foam he cut himself from his old spare mattress. Then, in a gesture that was unsolicited, but deeply human, he added a small folding lever within the boy's reach. A homemade invention. When triggered, a small suspension system lowered the seat slightly so that the child could reach the ground on their own, without assistance. This chair was no longer just repaired, it was redesigned. He was now a symbol of autonomy, dignity, and resilience. As day broke, the first rays of sunlight streamed through the dirty windows of the garage, landing on the now transformed object. It looked like a new armchair. A chair ready to roll, to carry a child toward a future that had been thought to be closed. At 8 a.m., the mother returned. She hurried out of the SUV, deep circles under her eyes, still tense with anxiety. But she stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Derek standing in the doorway, a rag in his hand, and the chair directly behind him. She moved forward, her hands trembling, and when she looked at the chair, she burst into tears. My God! This is... She couldn't finish her sentence. She touched the armrests, the new wheels, the redesigned seat. Then she turned to Derek, upset. How much do I owe you? He looked at her calmly, then sketched that same discreet smile he offered to those who came to him without hatred. This boy needs to move, no debt. It's a gift. She tried to put money in his hand. She insisted. But he backed away slightly, shaking his head. Some engines just need to be restarted. That's all. Then he quietly returned to his workbench, where an old Ford was waiting its turn, as if the night had been just another ordinary workday. Few knew who Derek really was. Most saw him as a lonely man, walled in by his routines. But those who had lived here long remembered. Derek Coleman had been one of the Air Force's most brilliant military engineers. He had once worked on propulsion systems for fighter jets. He was a man they consulted in Washington, a man whose hands had helped design what flew faster than sound. But what was less well known was that he had a son, Isaiah. A laughing little boy, fascinated by airplanes, diagnosed with fulminating leukemia at age 9. Between insurance delays, military procedures, and experimental treatments, Isaiah hadn't survived. He died in Derek's arms, in a poorly equipped hospital, while his father was still trying to understand why we waited so long. Since that day, Derek had left the military. He had sold his house, retired from high-tech, and settled here, in this half-abandoned family garage, fixing what others said was junk. He wasn't looking for recognition. He didn't want to shine anymore. He just wanted to reach out, in his own way. He repaired broken things, but more than that, he repaired what society had too often neglected, invisible lives. And every night when he closed his studio, he would put on an old blues record, sit on a creaky chair with a warm beer, and look at the empty armchair his son had never been able to use. Because what Derek was really fixing, it was the world, piece by piece. The following Friday shortly after noon, Derek stood in the garage, sweating over his forehead, concentrating on a particularly stubborn timing belt on an old Ford pickup. The engine rumbled softly, suspended by a hand crane, while his oil-blackened hands performed watchmaker's movements. As is often the case, he had forgotten the outside world. Only an old B.B. King song murmured in the background. Suddenly, a low, regular humming sound split the rural silence, even covering the music. Derek looked up. An white and silver private jet, with its elegant lines, began a slow descent over the silos. It made a low, almost unreal passage before landing on the small municipal track, a few kilometers away. The airport, a simple strip of concrete without a control tower, only accommodated agricultural aircraft and a few single-engine flight school planes. A jet, here, was almost supernatural. Derek raised an eyebrow, then went back to his work. Until the black SUVs arrive. Less than 15 minutes later, a discreet but impressive convoy of 3 Chevrolet Suburbans, a tinted windowed car parked in front of the garage. One of the vehicle's engines was still running. Men got out, dressed in plain suits, wearing dark glasses and transparent earpieces. The kind of men you only see in Washington suburbs or on CNN interview sets. Derek slowly wiped his hands, his brow furrowed. He didn't understand. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He owed no one anything. Then he saw her, the mother. She got out of the second vehicle. This time, she wasn't panicking, but straight, dignified, radiant. Her gaze met Derek's, and she smiled with suppressed emotion. Behind her, the boy appeared. Caleb. Dressed in a perfectly tailored cobalt blue suit, his hair neatly combed, his cheeks a little fuller, his bearing more solid. He no longer looked like a child exhausted by pain, but like a little prince returning from a distant kingdom. His chair rolled perfectly. Better still, he was shining, polished, cleaned, almost sacred. Caleb approached silently. His eyes, wide and full of admiration, stared at Derek like a hero in a book you thought was fictional. A man in a suit spoke in a clear and calm tone. "Mr. Coleman, good morning." He held out his hand. "I'm Andrew Rosenfield, president of the Rosenfield Foundation for Children with Disabilities. Young Caleb here told us in detail what you've been doing. And we wanted to meet you." Caleb approached. In his hands, a small mahogany box, he held it out with touching seriousness. "I wanted to thank you. Thanks to you, I was able to fly to Boston. I received the bone marrow transplant. The doctors say it was a success. I'm going to recover." His voice trembled slightly at the end, but he held firm. He looked at Derek with the innocence of a child and the gratitude of a survivor. Derek took the box carefully. He opened it. Inside, a handwritten letter, in blue ink, signed by the president of the foundation, thanking Derek for his act of courage and compassion. And certificate of honor, framed in a case, with a special mention. For having repaired much more than an armchair, for having restored hope. And one check for $250,000. But that was not all. Andrew spoke again, this time with gentle gravity, as if he were measuring the importance of each word. "We want to finance the complete modernization of your garage. Not just a lick of paint and new tools. No. We're talking about creating a model space. A center capable of receiving children in wheelchairs, designing custom parts, offering free repairs, with dignity." He paused, then continued. "We are launching a national solidarity wheelchair repair program for low-income families. A network that will give disadvantaged children access to the same standards as those in private hospitals. But for this to be more than just a concept, we need someone who knows what it means to really repair. Someone who is hands-on. Someone who cares. You, Mr. Coleman. You would be our national technical manager." Derek didn't answer right away. He stood there, motionless, arms crossed, as if frozen in time. He looked at his hands. Those large, chiseled hands that had repaired fighter engines, then forgotten engines. Those hands that had cradled his son in the hospital. Those same hands that, a week earlier, had restored a broken armchair to the appearance of an exploration vessel. Then his gaze slid to Caleb. The boy stared at him with a wide smile. Not a commercial smile, not a learned smile, but a pure smile. Full of hope. A smile that only a saved child can offer. Derek then felt a strange warmth rise in his chest. A long-buried tension was slowly easing. A tear threatened, but he blinked it back. Then, in a quiet breath, he said, "So I guess there's still some things to fix, huh?" 8 months later, the old Monroe Street garage was no longer the same. The rusty sheets of metal had given way to renovated brick walls, a solar-paneled roof gleamed in the sun, and a new name had been affixed above the entrance, in simple but powerful letters. Coleman Center for Human Mobility. Inside, modern tools sat side by side with Derek's old hammers, like a marriage between the old and new worlds. 3D printers created custom chair parts in real time. A state-of-the-art access ramp made it easy for everyone to enter. Families arrived from Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, sometimes even from Canada, to repair what was thought to be lost. But what people came here for was more than repairs. They came for the man with the silent gaze, with calm gestures, with an immense heart. The one who never judged. The one who refused no one. And Caleb? He was no longer just a beneficiary. He came every Saturday. He helped with screws, disassembly, and measurements. He asked 1,000 questions and wrote everything down in a notebook. He wanted to become an engineer, like Derek. Better yet, he wanted to be like him. And often, when a parent shyly asked, "Are you the mechanic? The one who fixed all this?" Caleb replied proudly, looking at Derek with a gleam in his eyes. "Yes. But be careful. He's not a mechanic like the others." Near the workbench, on a rough wooden wall, stood an engraved plaque, donated by the foundation, but secretly commissioned by Caleb himself. She said, "To the man who repaired more than just an armchair. He gave movement back to a child's heart. Caleb J. Winton ****. And every time Derek laid eyes on it, he remembered. From his son. From this night. From the armchair. From the world that can still be saved, one bearing at a time.